Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. She did it while buttering her bread. That's what gets me. Not during a fight. Not in private. No tension. No warning. Just a smear of garlic butter, a casual sip of red wine, and then, if I had to rate you in bed, I'd give you a 0. It hung in the air like smoke. No laugh followed. No wink. Just that. 0. It wasn't even a conversation about relationships. We were talking about summer vacations. Someone had just shown a photo of their trip to Lake Arrowhead. The shift was so violent, so unexpected, I actually looked behind me for context, as if maybe she was talking to someone else. But she was looking right at me, still holding her butter knife, still smiling like we were in on some inside joke. We weren't. The table fell quiet for a heartbeat. I heard a fork clatter somewhere near the end. My stomach folded into itself like wet paper. I wanted to melt into the seat. I wanted to disappear. And then came the twist. Her friend Cora, you know the type. Eyes that always seem to know more than they say, leaned in across the table, raised an eyebrow, and said, I dunno. I kinda want to check that score myself. Nobody laughed. Not right away. Then a few forced chuckles. Someone exhaled sharply through their nose. Darcy. My wife scoffed and waved her off like it was nothing. But it wasn't. Not to me. I barely remember the rest of the dinner. The salmon tasted like cardboard. The room felt 20 degrees hotter. I could hear the blood pushing through my ears, louder than any conversation around me. She didn't apologize in the car. Didn't mention it at all, actually. She just played with her phone, humming along to the radio, like she hadn't just sliced into me in front of 10 people. That night, I stared at the ceiling for hours while she snored beside me. And for the first time in our marriage, I wondered, was this who she really was? Or was this who she'd always been, and I'd been too blind or too desperate to see it? I wish I could say I moved on, that I shook it off and stood up for myself. But what I did next, yeah, it wasn't strong or smart. It was curious. And that curiosity is what dragged me into something deeper. Something I never saw coming. Cora's words didn't leave my head for days. They slithered back into my thoughts every time I tried to pretend I was fine. I kinda want to check that score myself. It wasn't flirtatious. It wasn't sarcastic. It was deliberate, like she meant it. And I hated how quickly my mind latched onto it, replayed it, stretched it into something bigger than maybe it was. I started checking her Instagram, something I hadn't done in years. I wasn't even following her, but I found it in seconds. Cora, always somewhere expensive looking, always with a drink in hand and a caption like, some people can't handle me. Was I one of those people? Darcy still hadn't brought up what she said that night. Not a whisper of regret. She moved through the house like everything was normal. And maybe to her it was. Maybe making me the punchline had become so habitual. She didn't even register it anymore. But I did. I felt it in my bones. That quiet humiliation. That helplessness. You know that feeling when you're at the edge of something but can't decide whether it's a cliff or just a step. That's where I was living. The following Saturday, I found myself outside a boutique bakery downtown, hands trembling around a box of macarons Darcy had asked for. She texted me earlier, pick up those raspberry ones. You know the kind I like. Don't screw it up this time. That last part wasn't even meant to be funny, just her usual tone. I was about to get in the car when I heard someone behind me say, you always this jumpy? I turned, and there she was, Cora. In yoga pants, no makeup, hair in a loose braid. She looked real, normal, not like her online version. Sorry? I mumbled, feeling every bit the awkward loser. She smiled, tilted her head. Didn't mean to scare you. Just didn't expect to see you here. She stepped closer, still thinking about what I said. Huh? My heart knocked against my ribs. I tried to stammer out something neutral, but my mouth went dry. She let the silence sit for a beat, then said, tell you what, if you ever want to prove her wrong, you know where to find me. And with that, she winked and walked away. I stood frozen, holding that stupid box of overpriced cookies, unsure whether I'd just been tempted or targeted. and I hadn't even gotten home yet. What waited for me behind that front door was far worse than anything I imagined. I don't remember driving home that day. I must have hit every red light, but I couldn't tell you a single intersection. My thoughts were swarming like flies in a sealed jar, loud, frantic, impossible to swat away. Cora's words haunted me. If you ever want to prove her wrong, was it a joke? A test? A trap? Or something even darker? Something planned? I don't know what scared me more. The idea that Darcy might be in on it, or the possibility that she wasn't and I was just caught in a bizarre game I didn't know how to play. When I walked through the front door, Darcy didn't even look up from her laptop. "Took you long enough?" she muttered, as if I'd just returned from battle empty-handed. I handed her the box of macarons, and she flipped it open like she was judging a wine pairing. "You got the wrong ones." I blinked. "They're raspberry." She squinted at the label. "These are raspberry lemon." I said just raspberry. Her voice was clipped, annoyed, like I'd committed some cardinal sin. I wanted to scream, "Do you even hear yourself?" But instead, like always, I apologized. She rolled her eyes and went back to typing. Later that evening, she left for her book club. I use air quotes because I've never seen a book in her hands on those nights, and the only club she seems to belong to is the one that posts boomerangs from rooftop bars. Normally, I wouldn't have questioned it, but after what happened with Cora, something shifted. Couldn't let it go. So I waited, sat on the couch, lights off, fingers curled around my phone. 10 minutes after she left, I opened Find My iPhone. She had no idea her location was still shared with me. I told myself I wouldn't look unless I had a reason, but now I did. My heart hammered as I watched the little dot settle. Not at the usual cafe where her group met, but at a townhouse on the other side of the city. I stared at the screen for several long minutes, making excuses for her like I always do. Maybe they changed locations. Maybe her phone glitched. Maybe a notification popped up. It was from Cora. Still curious? That was it. 2 words. No context. And suddenly, everything inside me collapsed into one sickening realization. This wasn't random. This was something much, much deeper, and I had just stepped into it blind. I didn't respond to Cora's message. Couldn't. My thumbs hovered over the keyboard like they were waiting for permission from a better version of me. One who had self-respect. One who didn't need to know what she meant. But I wasn't that version. I was the guy still wearing the same hoodie from college, sitting alone in a dim living room, gripping his phone like it was holding him together. My wife had just lied about where she was, and another woman had texted me like we were in on something. I didn't answer, but I didn't block her either. And that silence between us started pulsing like an invitation. An hour passed. I kept staring at that little blue dot on the map. It hadn't moved. Darcy was still at that townhouse, which didn't belong to anyone in her so-called book club. I zoomed in, squinting at the street name. Then I switched to Google Maps and searched it. A man's name popped up. A local real estate agent. Single. A few years younger than me. Great smile in his professional headshots. I felt like I was going to be sick. I knew if I left the house right then, I'd do something I couldn't walk back from. But staying still felt worse. So I did something stupid. I called my brother. He's one of those guys who always sounds like he's doing push-ups while talking, full of solutions and zero patience for my emotional spirals. I told him everything. The dinner, the rating, the message from Cora, the blue dot. There was silence on the line. Then he sighed and said, "You already know the truth, Lowell. You're just waiting for someone else to confirm it." And I hated how right he was. But I still needed proof. Not theories. Not feelings. I needed something real, even if it broke me. So I grabbed my jacket, keys, and my dumb idea of dignity, and I got in the car. I didn't know what I was going to do when I got there. Knock on the door? Sit in the car and watch like some sad movie cliché? All I knew was that I couldn't let the night end without knowing. I drove in silence, heart pounding, headlights slicing through streets I didn't recognize. When I turned the corner onto that street, my chest locked. Her car was parked right outside. But that wasn't what hit me the hardest. It was the second car beside it. Cora's. I didn't move. I just sat there in my car, lights off, engine running low like a held breath, staring at those two vehicles. Darcy's was unmistakable. The tiny heart-shaped decal on the rear window, the dent she never got fixed. And Cora's was burned into my memory from the nights she'd park in front of our house when they went out together. The realization hit in slow, crushing waves. They were here, together, inside that house. And the worst part? I didn't even know who I was angrier at. Could have left. A smarter man probably would have. But I wasn't thinking straight. I killed the engine, stepped out quietly, and walked across the street. Every step toward that townhouse felt like walking into a burning building. But I needed to know. I needed to see what my gut had been screaming for days. I crept around the side, palms sweaty, my breath catching on every gust of wind. There was a narrow window near the back, and the light inside was on. Not bright, just enough to see silhouettes. At first, it was blurry movement, laughter, female voices. Then one shadow crossed another, then another. And then, for a single, horrifying second, the curtain shifted and I saw both of them. Darcy, sitting comfortably on a sleek leather couch, wine glass in hand, and Cora, sitting beside her, too close. They weren't touching, but their energy was loud, intimate, too familiar. Cora was whispering something, and Darcy leaned in, smirking in that cruel little way I'd seen 1,000 times before. I backed away. I didn't want to see more. I didn't need to. Every inch of that moment screamed what I hadn't dared admit. This wasn't a one-time betrayal. It was layered, complicated, maybe even planned. And I was the joke in the middle of it. I stumbled back into my car and sat there for a long time, shaking, wondering how I got here. I thought I married a woman who loved me. I thought her friends were just background noise. But now, I wasn't sure if I'd ever known her at all. What I did next was reckless. It was fueled by humiliation. But it finally gave me an answer. One that would tear everything wide open. I was still gripping the steering wheel when I saw the front door open. I instinctively ducked, even though I was parked half a block away. Two figures stepped out, laughing, loudly. One of them was Darcy, hair tied back, wearing that oversized gray sweater I always thought made her look soft and safe. Except tonight, she looked like someone I didn't know. The second was Cora, with that same casual boldness. Confident, unapologetic, like she had nothing to hide. I expected them to go their separate ways, maybe share a quick goodbye. But instead, Cora pulled Darcy close and whispered something into her ear. Darcy laughed, tossed her head back, and for 1 second, I swear she looked happy in a way I hadn't seen in years. Not with me anyway. They didn't kiss. But the way they lingered made something in me collapse. It wasn't jealousy, not exactly. It was grief. The grief of realizing you've already lost something but kept pretending it was still yours. I didn't follow them. I waited until both cars were gone, then drove home slowly, like my tires weighed more than the car itself. My mind didn't race. It spiraled, tightly, painfully, into questions I didn't want answers to. Back home, I sat in the kitchen, staring at the untouched macarons still on the counter. She hadn't taken them with her. Or maybe she just forgot. I opened the box, bit into one, and nearly choked. Too sweet, too fake, just like all of this. I checked my phone. No new messages from her. No missed calls. Not even a lie to cover her tracks. But what I did find stopped me cold. Cora had posted something to her story. A video, just 4 seconds long. Candlelight, wine glasses clinking, and in the background, barely visible, Darcy's laugh. Her laugh. That same smug, teasing laugh she used to give me when I asked her if she still loved me, and she'd reply, "Why wouldn't I?" with a smirk instead of an answer. I didn't reply. I didn't screenshot. I didn't even breathe for a while. I just watched the clip again and again until it expired. And then I made a decision. Not revenge. Not confrontation. Something quieter, but far more permanent. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise. I didn't sleep, not really. Just laid there next to Darcy, watching her chest rise and fall like nothing had happened. Her phone buzzed once around 3 a.m. And though I didn't check it, I didn't need to. I already knew. But I didn't argue. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I simply waited for her to roll over and mutter something about being tired, about needing coffee. And when she did, I told her I had a dentist appointment. It was a lie, but she didn't care enough to ask. She just grunted and went back to scrolling through her phone. I grabbed my keys and drove, but not to the dentist. I went to my bank. I had already spent the night backing up everything. Emails, messages, receipts, photos, bank statements. I was methodical, numb, and colder than I'd ever felt in my life. The woman who mocked me in public, humiliated me privately, and then paraded around with her friend like I was invisible. She didn't deserve an explosion. She deserved quiet distance. So I emptied our joint account, the part with my name first, and moved every cent into a private checking account I had opened a year ago and never used. Back then, it was just a stupid thing I did after she joked about divorcing me during an argument. Now it was my lifeline. Then I drove to a storage unit I'd rented that morning online. It was tiny, but clean. I dropped off a box of essentials I'd quietly packed the night before. Passport, laptop, a few clothes. I didn't want revenge. I wanted a way out that didn't end with me shattered on the floor, begging someone who never loved me to stay. I got a cheap motel room on the edge of town and sat in silence, staring at my phone. No texts, no missed calls. She hadn't even noticed. And when she did, when she walked into our house and found the note I left beside the untouched macarons, I knew the silence would finally scream loud enough to reach her. The note was short. You win. You can rate me however you want now. I'm gone. But I wasn't done yet. Because what happened later that evening changed the story entirely. I didn't expect her to show up. I truly didn't. But around 9 that evening, while I was sitting in the motel room with the TV flickering soundlessly in the background, there was a knock on the door. I looked through the peephole and there she was. Darcy. No makeup, hoodie half-zipped, eyes wide with confusion and maybe, just maybe, the tiniest trace of panic. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. She stared at me, silent for a moment, like she couldn't believe I was real. What is this? She finally asked, holding up my note. I shrugged. What does it look like? She blinked, then scoffed. So you're just leaving? No explanation? That part almost made me laugh, like I owed her clarity. You rated me in front of 10 people, I said. Your friend offered to verify it. Then you both disappeared into someone else's house like it was a game. She looked stunned, like she hadn't expected me to say it out loud. You don't know what you saw. That old line. Classic. I nodded. You're right. I don't. And I don't need to anymore. I stepped back, motioned toward the open motel room. Take a look. This is peace. This is what being alone looks like. And honestly, it's better than being nothing to someone who thinks they're everything. She didn't say another word. She turned around and walked away. No screaming, no tears, just silence. That's how it ended. It's been 3 months since that night. I filed for divorce the following week. The house is up for sale. I found a small apartment with a leaky faucet and peeling paint, but it's mine. I got a dog. His name's Bishop. He's a rescue just like me. And funny enough, Cora never texted again. I think she knew the damage was done. But I didn't chase her. I didn't need validation anymore. I wake up now without waiting for someone else's approval to feel like I matter. And maybe that's the best ending I could have hoped for. Thanks for sticking with me. If you've ever found the courage to walk away from something that made you feel small, you're not weak, you're finally strong. You've been watching Reddit Confessions. If you made it this far, drop a comment telling us about a moment in history, big or small, that shocked you, inspired you, or made you rethink everything. We'd love to hear it.